The subject comes up a lot with my clients about how to live at your highest potential. What we forget and what we haven't been taught in this society is living at our highest potential does not mean what we achieve or what we become, but really more about how we are whole and how we integrate and how we heal and how we're able to feel free in any and all conditions. Of course, there are exceptions, but I mean when we live unconditionally, it means we get to feel this good, awesome feeling regardless of our conditions. Watch this video. So I was having this cool conversation with one of my clients today, and the whole subject came up of sort of emotional stuff. And when you feel your emotional trigger, you become one person. It kind of takes over. You feel like even what you're thinking doesn't make sense sometimes. You're not sure how to trust yourself when you have this emotional reaction. And then there's this other part of you that is calm and great and feels stable when your emotions are at bay. And she was asking me, is that bipolar? I hear this a lot. This is what I'm talking about. It's not just one person. Is that bipolar? Is that something wrong with me? What is that? And so I feel like this is a perfect example to bring into the topic today of living at your highest potential. That thing that goes on with so many people, it used to happen to me all the time in my 20s. But that thing that happens is your wound. That is your emotional wound, your emotional pain body. I've talked about it in other videos, but for the purpose of the highest potential, I want to say that when this wound and this emotion comes up and this thing that trips your life up or makes you make decisions that aren't in alignment with your higher self, your stable sort of conscious self, when this happens, this is your wound saying, pay attention, I'm here, and I need you to integrate me so I don't get in your way any longer. So a lot of people think, I want to live at my highest potential, I want to achieve the highest level that I can achieve, I want to meet all of my goals and dreams. Beautiful, awesome. But once you hit those goals and dreams and you're not healed, you're still going to feel like something's missing. You're still going to feel like, why isn't this making me fully happy? It's because of this thing we're talking about. We're going to call it X. This part of yourself that hasn't been integrated, that needs to be integrated to feel the feeling that you think you're going to get from achieving all these things. It's great to achieve things. It's great to get things in life that you dream of. Many of my dreams that I've realized have been very necessary for the next level of my growth. But what I'm saying is, we have to fix this X. We have to integrate this part of ourselves. We have to talk to this part that usually, I'll give my client as an example, they don't want to look at, they ignore it, they call it crazy. We think this is what's wrong with me. This is actually the part of yourself that you've denied because someone else has told you that it's deniable and unlovable or unacceptable. And maybe now you think that means this is unacceptable. And what we need to do is have a completely different relationship with our pain, X, our wound, our emotional wound body, our emotional pain body. If we don't start to look at it and accept it and see that this negative and positive is actually just the same thing, we've just decided they're negative or positive. Since we've decided it's negative, it gets in the way of our life and tries to sabotage us because it still wants to be loved and integrated. So, to live at your highest potential means to take those parts of yourself you've put here and separated and said, not worthy, scared, because if I look at that, maybe it's confirming I'm not enough, messes me up, ruins my life, makes me emotional, makes me someone that I don't want to be. Until we look at this and say, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe that part that I'm denying and rejecting and trying to make up for and trying to validate in other ways and trying to basically pretend doesn't exist or hate when it does come up and are mean to and call it crazy and think that's what's wrong with me and call it all these names, when we do that, we're making it worse, or we're burying it for later, but we're not integrating it or letting it go. The only way to integrate these parts of ourselves that come up for your attention, that come up for you to have a reevaluation of sorts, to look at again and say, do I really think this? To look at again and say, why is this acting this way? Why is this happening? Instead of just saying, that's what's wrong with me. I'm crazy. I'm emotional. I'm too sensitive. All the things that we say. I want you to say, this is a very worthy, loving part of me that I just put here because I'm afraid to embrace it. I'm afraid for it to be part of my identity. I think it's the part of me that's not okay. I think it's the part of me that's bad. I think it's the part of me that's unacceptable and needs to stay separate. Instead, I want you to say, maybe this is still there because it's separate. Maybe it can't survive without me. Maybe it can't integrate without me. Maybe it can't behave without my love. Think about it. To reach your highest potential, if you still got these parts of yourself hanging out, trying to sabotage you, trying to throw you off your game, trying to get your attention, trying to make you think things that aren't true and make you not trust yourself, it's because that's the part of you that needs you. It needs you to love it. It needs you to hear it. It needs you to redo these deep misinterpretations that you've decided are you, but you disown, so you don't have to feel like it's you. As long as you disown certain parts of you and keep them in your shadow, you guys have seen me do many videos on the shadow, as long as you keep them in the shadow, they will react, they will erupt, they will be triggered, and they will become active at some point in your life, at certain points in your day maybe, at certain points definitely in your week. So this is the first thing that I tell people to do. When you see that start to come up, instead of just doing what you normally do and call it crazy and look for an excuse of why it's there, become the victim. How did this get created? Maybe this is why I have this. Maybe this person did this to me. Accept that it's there. And accept that as long as you keep separating from it, it will be there. And instead, maybe have a little courage to look at what this emotional reaction is doing. And instead of trying to figure out where it comes from or why it's here, just look at what it is and say, okay, instead of having to trust myself and have issues about what this means about me or why this is happening to me, how about just say, this is happening to me. This is how I feel when this is activated. This is how I feel when this part of myself wants attention. And so I would call it a different name, X. Instead of saying, this is me and it engulfs me and it totally takes over my whole life, which most of us do until we realize this is your emotional pain body. This is your wound. This isn't you. When you can say, this is my wound, this is X, you can continue to have a sense of self that doesn't get fully engulfed. Over time, then you'll just start recognizing it as X. Oh, that's my wound. You start working with it little by little, allowing yourself to feel everything that you're feeling. Write it down on paper. And after you write down everything that you feel, write, and I love you and accept you. And I love you anyway. It's about realizing that how we feel in every way is okay when we make it okay. Maybe someone didn't make it okay before. Maybe you got labeled as bad. Maybe you got labeled as crazy. Whatever it is, you understand better now. You see that that wound is the part that was getting called in crazy and wrong. And so you separate it from. And now you get to be enlightened and reintegrate that part of yourself. And so when you allow yourself to feel all that you need to feel, just be conscious enough to say, and I love you and accept you. Try it. It's a meditation. I tell people to do it every night. Write down your feelings. How did I feel today? And I love you and accept you anyway. It starts to allow you to be unconditional with all of you. And see that once we realize the light and the dark are just light and dark, they're basically the same thing, just looked at differently, we can become more whole and start to embrace our full potential. I just want to remind you guys that my online programs are designed specifically for this practice, for healing the wounds back into wisdom, for learning how to really re-love those parts of yourself. So there's Soul Lab and there's Self-Love Masterclass. All those links will be below as well. I hope you have an amazing week. Namaste.